1 year into the Trump presidency, it would be inaccurate to say that Trump hasn't done anything. He hasn't made any moves when it comes to addressing the opioid epidemic. He has been making moves. In fact, recently, they just happen to be in the exact wrong direction. And we have a great example of that today when it comes to funding. So we have information about his upcoming budget plans when it comes to the National Office of Drug Control Policy, and they are planning to cut virtually every dollar from 2 of the major programs in that office that have to do with combating the opioid epidemic. The plan that's currently in place would shift the office's 2 main grant programs, the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas Grant and the Drug Free Communities Act, to the Justice and Health and Human Services departments. The move overall is expected to result in a reduction of about $340 million, or 95% of that office's budget entirely, which is a lot. I mean, it's not everything.
Yeah, fake news.
Yeah.
Fake news. You said almost everything. That's only 95%.
So remember how we always say that under Obama we got 5% change? Well, he's just finishing the last 95% of it. But anyway, so they're saying, don't worry so much about this. Trump administration officials say the grants would be administered by larger agencies. Yes, okay, so they're not gonna be getting the funding that's established, but once they get moved to this new place, then the funding will probably come about there. But you should understand that this is coming after last year, where the White House Office of Management and Budget floated cutting the grant programs completely. And so there was a lot of pushback against that last year. So then we come around to this year where they're like, okay, we're cutting 95% of it and moving it. It'll be fine over there, I'm sure. I'm not exactly convinced at this point.
Okay, so when I first started reading this story, I thought, look, I think I might defend Trump here. And in fact, maybe I'll talk to John about taking it out of the rundown. If they're just moving stuff, who cares, right? They have every right in the world to move it from one part of the executive branch to another. But silly me to have trusted the Trump administration for half a story, right? When I was reminded, oh right, they tried to cut this budget completely, wipe out the entire organization just a little while ago. Well then, that's incredibly important context. Then wiping out 95% of its budget and telling us, don't worry, later that will reappear somewhere else, becomes a little less believable. So no, he said he declared the opioid crisis a national emergency. I remember the poor dad who really believed in Trump, and he went around to a lot of Trump rallies and he sang a song, he had a guitar, and he was trying to draw attention because his son had died from this crisis. And then they interviewed him afterwards when Trump originally basically said, I'm not gonna spend anything on it, right? And he was like, no, what happened? And he was heartbroken over it. Well, what happened is on every single issue, he lied to you. And so now, a national emergency, but I'm not gonna spend any money on it. Where does it make me money? How does it go to my hotels? How does it go to my donors? This doesn't help my donors at all. In fact, perhaps some of the Republican donors are pharmaceutical companies who don't want you to do anything about the opioid crisis, and all of a sudden, whole departments go away. Interesting how that works.
This is a crisis that's killing 91 Americans every single day, superseding car crashes now. I mean, more Americans die from car crashes from opioid addiction than car crashes. I mean, Trump made the declaration that he's gonna really tackle the opioid epidemic. What did he do? He picked people within the big pharma industry to run drug management, like he's doing everywhere. And I just interviewed the lawyer who's attacking the actual drug pushers, Mike Papantonio, who's suing the drug industry because he's saying it's not the doctors. Yes, we can blame addicts, we can blame doctors. It's the drug pushers who prey on vulnerable, poor communities and exploit them. And we need to go after them. But when it comes back to Trump, no, he's just packing and lining the pockets of his friends, just like he does with every problem and every scenario.
With moving this, saying, we're just moving it, we're not killing it. Really fast, it reminds me, we just reported on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They tried to stop it from ever being established years ago. Then they tried to kill it year after year after year, and they haven't yet been able to do that. So what do? They put someone in control of it that requested $0 for the budget. It's like killing it by any other name or something like that. And it's not just this, of course. You cut those 2 programs, well, that's not the only thing that they could have done, theoretically, funding these programs to deal with the crisis, but it's part of a long pattern. So that same Office of National Drug Control Policy, he still hasn't named a permanent director of it. Seems like if you care about this epidemic that you have labeled a national emergency, you'd at least have somebody other than, wasn't Chris Christie supposed to do something about the opioid? Maybe Jared is doing it. he takes a day off on his trips to
On the
deal with
side.
the peace process, and he fixes it. But then it's not just that. Also, remember last year he got some good press for allocating some funding to deal with it. And I remember reporting on it. It was 1% of what experts say would be needed to adequately deal with the epidemic across the country. And you said that he declared it a health emergency. I've also found references. He called it a national shame, a human tragedy, and vowed to win.
You know what else
But
is a
he's
human
forgotten about
tragedy? The attacks on marijuana and kratom, which are actually legal alternatives. And in a lot of these states, I mean, he's just basically overwriting states' rights here and doing these giant drug wars on drugs that could actually help people with pain management and alternatives to heroin and opioids. It's disgusting. Jeff Sessions' insane reefer madness.
What
hysteria.
decade is he
Yeah,
from?
exactly.
Yeah.
He's from the Kibler Elf cookie box.
Decade, whatever that was.
Yeah, for me, every decade. But
So they told us about gateway. When I was a kid, marijuana, gateway drug. Well, we found the gateway drug. The jury's in. It's prescription pain relief, so-called drugs, and they lead to. First of all, they don't have to lead to anything. You get addicted to the painkillers, and a lot of people just died from that. And then some of it leads to heroin, and a lot of people die from that. Some of it leads to fentanyl, and a lot of people die from that. And so we know what the gateway drug is, but they don't want to do anything about it because they make money off the gateway. They make billions upon billions of dollars off the gateway drug. And marijuana, now in states where it's legalized, they are starting to make money off of it. All of a sudden, Republicans are like, marijuana's not so bad, right? But overall, they're still fighting it because the drug companies are like, God damn it, that's just a plant. It's harder to make money off a plant. We have to try to create some fake version of it
that you can patent.
That's even more addictive, so that they can patent it, have a monopoly on it, kill the free market, and buy off these corrupt politicians. Finally, this epidemic is so out of control that even Republicans, especially in afflicted states like West Virginia and Ohio, are like, no, don't agree with Trump. We really got to do something about this. And it's not just us saying, no, he's actually trying to kill the program and not move it. Shelley Moore Capito from West Virginia and Rob Portman from Ohio, both deeply conservative Republicans, are saying, no, don't move it, don't kill it, don't defund it. For God's sake, we need this money. Literally, we're dying out here. And he says to the Republicans and the Democrats, I don't care. You're not a donor. Go ahead and go die somewhere else.
And the final thing I want to say is, as will be the case with literally every other discussion of how expensive it would be to do things we want to do, I'm going to compare it to the $1.5 trillion they just decided to hand to corporations and the extremely wealthy. We could cure it. I mean, we'd at least have the funding to cure this epidemic, and it would be a tiny, tiny fraction of what they just casually gave away to people who are already wealthier than the emperors from throughout human history.
Damn it, John, that's such a good point. Whenever they tell you, oh, no, opioid crisis, I mean, your son died from it and you believed in Trump and all this, but we don't have the money. They just gave away $1.5 trillion to the richest people in the country. They have the money, they just don't care about you. If you want to get the whole Young Turks show every single day, become a member, tytnetwork.com/join. And once you do, you'll be saying,
I'm like a smart person.
Or you might say,
I think it's weird.
Or you might say,
Oops.
No, that won't be that one. It won't be that one. It'll be great, trust me. tytnetwork.com/join.